Sarah Weiler from Contemporary Education, and I'm going to talk about shifting school culture in mainstream education from a model based on competition to a model based on collaboration. This is part of a larger series of videos where I'm talking about shifting school culture from 5 old basics: reproduction, competition, obedience, tolerance, and fragmentation, to 5 new basics that should be the pillars of education, which I call the 5 C's: creativity, connection, collaboration, critique, and caring. So right now, we're going to talk about this shift from competition to collaboration. I'm sure most people think it's quite normal that schools are based on this kind of competitive structure related to a kind of economic-based incentive and disincentive model to control behavior and control what is considered to be valued in terms of knowledge, and that should be transmitted to the next generation for them to reproduce, as I discussed in another video talking about reproduction to creativity. And in order to shuffle students through the system, the educational system, this organization of incentives and disincentives helps to shape and mold students as they go along in oftentimes like a one-size-fits-all line of production. And I've also talked about that metaphor of like factory, machine, hard drive, as if the student's brain is a hard drive and the teachers and the textbooks and the curriculum are programming students in a certain way. And to maintain that program, or to maintain the factory lines going and to have like a singular final product, the disincentives and incentives happen in a more coerced way, and they happen from an external place rather than thinking about something that's intrinsically valued by the students themselves or by other members of the school community themselves. Really, we take it all to be just the norm. We don't really stop often and think about what's going on and how things are structured and why they're structured that way, because those structures have an origin. Public schooling on a mass scale, it's a couple of centuries old. It's not something that has existed for all time. When we look at this kind of competitive structure nowadays, we see a lot of things that happen that maybe were not planned in advance. In order to be successful in the way schooling is modeled, we have a lot of unhealthy behaviors happening from, on one end of the scale, students that are completely committed and devoting almost every waking hour of their lives to study. So they go to school, and after school they go to tutoring, they go to cramming sessions, they go to further skill building and other kinds of knowledge enhancing program. Another end of the scale, you have students who are confronting huge difficulties in meeting these expectations and demands, and we have multiple diagnoses associated with that, from anxiety, attention deficit disorder, and many others. And in many cases, students are medicated related to those diagnoses. Things that happen that we can think, is it the student or is it certain structural elements of the system itself that are perpetuating, promoting, allowing for these kinds of diagnoses to come about? And then you have also students using performance enhancing drugs to keep up with the study schedules that they put out for themselves. You have students who also give up and drop out and say, I'm not going to be part of this. So there's a lot of social issues that are born out of this competitive schooling model, that we tend to focus on each issue distinctly and not look at how this is relating to the actual makeup and design of school itself. So my argument, laying out this kind of foundation for my argument, is that one, teaching and learning is not a competitive activity by its very nature. It is by its very nature collaborative. 2, that teaching and learning is not only a relationship from teacher who teaches to student who learns, but it is a collaborative activity in which the teacher also learns and the students also teach, and there are multiple other teachers, from authors that are being read and people that are experts that are interviewed, and field research that is done outside of the class, and the people that are encountered along those experiences. And within the students themselves as colleagues, the richness and the wealth that comes from them sharing their experiences, their repertoire of knowledge, and the concepts as they understand them in the world, and that those they can be shared and they can be used as resources for the whole learning community, rather than this kind of competitive idea of like, I need to hoard what's mine and not share, like a zero-sum game of education where some win only by others losing. The nature of it, going back to my first point that I'm saying, is that human beings teach and learn collaboratively. If you think of a baby must have the collaboration of others to survive. They cannot survive independently. And going through the lifespan, the way that we human beings teach and learn is collaboration with one another, social interaction with one another, engagement in shared and joint activities with one another. They are all in their absolute essence collaborative in some way. And third, that if we think that education is equipping students to deal with real-world problems and issues, then we need to also think about me, myself, and I only have so many resources, cognitive, emotional, physical, conceptual, material, so many political, economic. But when I get together and join with others, my resources are expanded and amplified. So there's something about us putting our heads together, metaphorically, and looking at problems and discussing them and opening up the space for divergent thinking and divergent voices and points of view, and being able to discuss them respectfully, discuss them with openness, and be able to come to new ideas, new designs, innovative solutions. And that's something that also relates to another one of the C's I've previously talked about, which is moving from an old principle of tolerance to the principle of caring. So creating that safe and nurturing and caring environment for this kind of dialogue and building and co-constituting of projects and ideas together collaboratively, that people can take risks and they don't have to feel guarded, they don't have to feel constantly judged and evaluated, but they can climb to new heights in a sense by working collaboratively and working together. We need to move from a competitive structure to a collaborative structure. A caveat: I don't think all forms of competition are bad, in the sense that I can compete against myself yesterday with myself today, in a constant striving to become better, the best possible person that I can be in a variety of aspects. I can self-evaluate and I can track my progress over time. I can ask for help from others that are trusted mentors and friends and family members to give me feedback that I think is going to be constructive and helpful for me. But that's not the same as this kind of high stakes competition that we see, that's as if it's a zero-sum game in schools in many cases, and where it's so high stakes that people can be labeled and categorized in a way that it sets them on a course in their life that it's hard to redirect. And I think that that's a very dangerous thing. I think schools should be opening up doors and opening up minds. That's my take on it. Do you agree, disagree, partially agree, partially disagree, and what are your reasons? Join me and others to be part of this dialogue about contemporary education at contemporaryeducation.com. Thank you.